You were the first documented self-defense case with a concealed carry permit. Can you just talk a little bit about that situation that night?
Yeah, basically, it was relatively interesting. I was in the car. My wife went into the store, grabbed some vegetables for breakfast the next morning. My son was crying, so then I followed her into the store to find her. She was getting ready to check out. And out of my peripheral vision, I see a guy come in. I see the unarmed security guards with their hands up in the air, and a guy behind him with a sawed-off rifle, which I thought was a shotgun at the time, pointed at him. And then he began to bark commands. I got my wife out the way and then found a relatively safe area. And when I saw a clear shot as he continued to, they already got the money, as he continued to threaten people and threaten our lives and wave the gun around, I was able to really get a clear shot. And at the time, I didn't have a round racked. So when I pulled the trigger and heard that click, it was one of the longest milliseconds of my life. And I was luckily was able to go ahead and get one racked and stop them.
After that situation, you had to fight to get your gun back, even filed a lawsuit. Can you talk a little bit about that experience, the after effects of acting in self-defense with a handgun?
The after effects, well, they really haven't stopped yet. So far as the lawsuit goes in Wisconsin, unfortunately, in particular Milwaukee, the city of Milwaukee, they really have an anti-firearm policy. It's not necessarily something that's written. We do have state law, but for the powers that be, they prefer to make guns disappear somehow from law-abiding citizens or prevent them. So my gun was taken. It was claimed that it was needed as evidence. However, we didn't believe it's needed as evidence. No one could articulate how, and I come to find out that some attorneys for the city even lied to a federal judge in the case and actually said that the gun was needed as evidence because the bullet was lodged in his leg. Unfortunately, we know on the second page of the police report, the bullet went through his leg. So my gun was not needed as evidence. They didn't want to give it back to me for any number of reasons, and it took 14 months for the main robber to actually get convicted. And the guy, very interestingly enough, the getaway driver, received probation. He was released before I even got my firearm back. So it's been hell ever since.
Looking back on the situation and the court case, what would you have done differently?
Well, obviously, I probably would have shopped somewhere else that night. I don't necessarily like the limelight or the drama that comes along with it. For example, when I say it's ongoing, I mean, imagine this happens. Now you're on the radar. First of all, I'm going to be real. I'm Muslim. All right, I'm African American. I'm also Latino. I become Muslim in '95. I'm going to change my name. So when I look at these other factors, and I hate to stereotype, but we're in America, it is what it is. Now I'm on people's radar. And imagine 11 months after this stuff happening, the Joint Terrorism Task Force and the FBI want to raid your home. Okay, so there are other legal ramifications that go along with it. And again, don't have a criminal record, but I'm fighting them on several different fronts right now. And I have no reason to believe it is except that I utilized my right to defend myself in that situation. Well, I'm glad he had the kahunas, if you would say, to step up and tell people the facts. The fact is the Milwaukee Police Department, the Chief of Police in particular, had made Gestapo-type comments where the Attorney General had to step in after the concealed carry law went into effect, say, if we see somebody carrying, we're going to throw them down and find out if they have a right to have that weapon. When on the flip side, the average response is well over half an hour for crazy crimes. I mean, sexual-related crimes, armed robberies. There was a guy who was robbed by gunpoint. I was about to go to bed one night, and I hear this commotion outside the window. I'm like, it's 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, what's going on? So I look, my neighbor's getting robbed. The same neighbor that just told me he don't ever think he'll need a firearm and stuff like that. And he's getting robbed. I see a guy has a firearm on him, and there's like several other guys going in and out of his pockets. I called the police to be a good witness. They showed up about 40 minutes later. Now, they took his keys to the car. They saw exactly where he lived at, took his wallet, took his cell phone, took everything. Okay, so Sheriff Clark was just pointing out facts. If you're expecting somebody else to come and save you when it's your life, then, if you care about your life, period, then you might want to be able to defend yourself. Because bullets move at just, a few hundred miles a second, as opposed to the police, especially Milwaukee. It may take minutes, 10, 20, 30 hours or so for them to get there. So it just makes sense to be able to protect yourself, and he was stating facts. It is what it is, but my life is important to me. It's the only one I have, and I don't want to chance it. I don't think they have an obligation to jump in other people's things. I mean, it's for self-defense. okay, you do have the option if you feel their life is being threatened at that time. I mean, for example, with my situation in the Aldi grocery store, when this guy already had the money, he was threatening he already had the money, but he still turned toward a pregnant cashier and said he was going to blow an effing head off. You know, so he was still going. I'm thinking he's really going to shoot this lady. And you never know. I mean, I know about Luby's into this. There's no way to measure statistics when you're in that moment. So though there's not an obligation to do so, that depends on a person's judgment. I mean, I'm not out trying to do an officer's or somebody else's job as vigilante justice. I want to make sure I'm okay, and my family, my loved ones are okay. That's my first and only priority when I'm carrying.
So having experienced all that you've experienced, what requirements, if any, should there be to obtain a concealed carry permit?
Well, I'm a strong believer in constitutional carry. And that means, obviously, if you're legal and you're mentally competent enough to possess a firearm, then there shouldn't be any extra licensing requirements. Many times it's just a tax, in my opinion, to really enrich the state and to keep a certain ethnic background out. And if you look into the history of gun control, we know that gun control was instituted to not allow black people in this country to have firearms. You talk about the Democratic Party decades ago. Now, that's not at all an endorsement of the Republican Party. I'm more libertarian leaning anyway. But when you look at it, it was initially established to stop people of color from having firearms. It was not something that, they were just concerned about the kids and all the hoopla that goes on about it. I mean, for example, I'm in Milwaukee just a few weeks ago, a child got shot on the playground. Well, a week before that, coincidentally, there was a big hoopla about a parent who was taking a picture of their child going down a slide, and they saw a guy that was evidently watching his child go down another slide, but he was open carrying, and they were upset. Well, how do you feel about maybe somebody should have been at that park when the girl got shot? And maybe she would not have gotten shot, or somebody would have been able to protect themselves. You know, so this thinking of disarming a law-abiding individual is going to make things safer. It's just ludicrous.